Okay, very good. Have any of you guys ever studied the Bhagavad Gita?
Read it more than once, but
Yeah, I read it.
studied it, not in a class.
Yeah, Curtis is shaking his head. Was
Yeah,
it?
there are a lot of different translations. Gandhi thought it was all allegory, for example.
What was that about allegory?
He thought it was all allegory. He just so
Who did?
averse to violence.
Who did?
Mahatma Gandhi.
Oh,
And yet it's all about war.
wow.
Gandhi just liked to think it was all allegory.
Okay. Well, I studied it for years, 50 years ago. And it was great. It was great then. It was great for me before I really encountered fully Buddhism, and it was really great. And yeah, I've got several different translations, and I've got somebody who I'm talking with, and we decided to start reading the Bhagavad Gita together, and it's wonderful. It really is. There are some basic differences between it and Buddhism, but they're not terrible differences. And I've wondered whether or not it would be a benefit to explore that, more as, not just Buddhism, but also other Eastern tradition, as well as the Tao Te Ching and Krishna consciousness, the Bhagavad Gita.
Maybe better to read Patanjali's book. What's the title again?
Yoga Sutras.
Yoga Sutras, yeah.
Bernie, you are a Patanjali kind of guy.
Well, it's closer to Buddhism because it's all mostly about meditation. So that would be more appropriate. So
What's that there you got?
interpersonal neurobiology.
Wow, that sounds like you need a degree to read that one.
It's by Daniel Siegel. He's a well-being and a meditation guy. That's one of the neuroscientists in UCLA, the UCLA mindfulness center. He's a brilliant guy. Interpersonal neurobiology, that sort of gives you the clue that he's of the mind, as many of the neuroscientists are, that the mind is bigger than our body, and that interpersonally, as an interbeing, is a common state that we can tap into, sharing mind, and being in each other's lives in a deeper way than we imagine.
I'm reading an interview now. I can't remember the guy's name, Leviton or something like that.
Stuart Levitan?
Huh?
Stuart Levitan?
Maybe so.
Mm.
He's a psychologist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he's making the point that a lot of what was before considered to be psychology is now coming out of being called psychology, is now neurology, or what do you call it?
Neuroscience or neurobiology. Yeah.
Neurobiology.
Well, it's because psychologists were able to come up with considerably small amounts of empirical evidence that was related to the brain and the nervous system and the body. And now as we begin to realize the union of mind and body, and the things that the trauma and everything else that actually lives in our tissues, then this sort of perspective on embodied mindfulness and being, body being, it's riding the same wave. Now that they can do some amazing exams of the brain and the full body nervous system, and they're investigating the smaller sort of neurobiology of micromuscular bundle interactions and the neurology of the of the heart frame. And yeah, I mean, it's great stuff. It can be pretty deep reading, but some of these guys they know what it is to make things readable, you know.
Well, good. Well, I'll scan this article I'm reading, this interview, and send it to y'all. Maybe be interested in taking a look at it.
Cool.
It's very interesting, very provocative. Well, Adrian is
Yeah.
not with us. I sent everybody a message again and with the new link, and I guess he's busy. All right, so why don't we get started? Michael, will you begin, please?
Yeah, I think I can do that. I'm without my computer. I left my power pack at work, so I'm on iPad and phone. So, and excuse my hoarse voice. I've been talking all day. So let's everybody start by connecting to and grounding in a felt sense of the body while we're talking about it. Attending lightly and lovingly to the breath. Take some deep breaths and have some deep exhalations, cleansing breaths. And then allow our breath to return to a normal rhythm while remaining aware of breathing as a whole body phenomena. Sitting, standing, or lying in a comfortable position, and noticing the points of our body, like our sits bones and our feet, touching the chair, cushion, floor, and inviting a sense of connection to and support by the earth, while remembering and opening to the sky above us and the awesomeness of space and the great expanse. And being aware of all the space inside the body and the space just outside the body. And allowing the breath to bridge the two. Excuse me. For the moment, bringing focus to an object of meditation, an anchor to this very present moment for our consciousness. Could be the breath, body sensations, sounds, a mantra. In the same way we bring the body to stillness by supporting it in a given posture, we allow the mind to rest on the body or on an associated object. Connecting awareness to the object of meditation, and then sustaining a light, loving awareness there. When we're distracted, noting with a word or two what emerged in our mind. For example, listening, seeing, itching, hunger, tiredness, and then returning to the breath, doing that over and over again, like rubbing the mind on the object as if we were polishing a beautiful piece of wood. As we establish stillness in the body and connect the mind with an object of meditation, remember to invite an attitude of kindness towards ourselves and toward our experience, however it is. not to be in contention with things, not to be in a struggle with ourselves. And we'll take a moment to sit in silence together. Thank you for practicing with me.
Thank you. So who's on tonight? It's Bernie, right?
It's me. It's me. So let's all begin. The text is the new section of the book called The Ultimate Supreme Path of Mahamudra by Lama Sheng. And everybody's got the page there, I hope. So this text starts off with an introduction in the sort of traditional way. Starts with the title and then what would you call it? The word suddenly homage. It starts with an homage to the gurus. Then it gives the promise to write the text and then the reason for writing the text. This is a very traditional way of introducing a commentary in Tibetan. So let's begin with the text, The Ultimate Supreme Path of Mahamudra. I pay homage to the venerable, glorious gurus. Reverently, I bow at the feet of the realized gurus, are the union of infinite beneficial lassos. Now that's a little puzzling, and there's a footnote for it. And the footnote says, what does it say? In praises, the lasso is a common metaphor for the power of the Buddha's blessing and compassion, with which the Buddhas can lasso beings and so rescue them from suffering. Okay, so here's the first question. What do each of you think the Buddha's blessings are, and how do they rescue beings? Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
I think it awakens the Buddha's teachings and the guidance of the lamas and so forth, awakens the Buddha nature within, or the Buddha nature is already awake, but it gets us kind of in tune with the Buddha nature within, and then we're kind of hooked, and then we just develop from there.
How do you think that happens?
It would have to be due to a karmic connection.
Okay. Anybody else want to say what they think the blessing of the infinite blessings of the Buddhas are and how they work?
Well, I'm anxious to hear what you have to say about it, but I think it would have to be that, it's their illumination of our Buddha nature, that they are the blessing of the illumination, of the luminosity of their radiance that shines upon us, and it becomes luminous around us, and we recognize that our true nature is the same as the Buddha.
Okay, so what do you think this luminosity is? Do you have any idea what that luminosity might be?
Bodhicitta.
So you think it's the power of bodhicitta. What is bodhicitta? Give us a definition.
Well, bodhicitta is the vast, immeasurable qualities of the holy enlightened mind, of what that true nature is. So, of course, it's loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity, which, together is the essence of what it is to be an enlightened being, to express that and so on. So in Buddhist terms, whether we're talking about the Hinayana, Mahayana, or Vajrayana, it all is expressing bodhicitta.
Okay, anybody else want to speak what they think the blessings of the Buddhas are, or the blessings of the Guru for that matter? Blessings of the Guru or the blessings of the Buddha?
If you're in the desert and you're wandering lost and it's hot, if you met someone and they said, here, have some cool water, and you had a taste of that water, you would know how good it is and how important it is. And you would want to drink more of that water. I think it's like that.
So what's the water in your analogy?
The Dharma.
The Dharma. So just teaching the Dharma is the blessing of the Buddhas.
It's one of the blessings of the Buddhas.
One of the blessings of the Buddhas.
Yeah.
Okay. So what else? Okay. So
I think
how?
Tom wanted to say something.
Okay.
I think one of my first understandings is the initial connection of ordinary beings, and to have a connection with the Dharma, the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, is one of the most difficult things. And to initiate that, the gurus will start, at the very basics of just teaching, simple things as love, love and compassion, instead of going so deeply, right into Dharma teachings. But, just because initially when these were taught, they weren't taught to the most educated of people. They're taught to very simple, humble beings. So when they introduce them to these people, the the basic connection, or try to connect them to even some kind of connectivity with their next life with Buddha, not just trying to start that. I mean, the simple thing is lighting an incense at the altar. We're making a simple thing as making an offering, So I think those are the very basics that started out as a lasso to start people with a basic connection. Because without that connection, you can talk Dharma, you can talk about Buddhism to somebody will just go in one ear, come right out the other ear. It just doesn't matter. But just starting that hook, like you said, Pete, just starting. That's the most important thing.
Okay, I don't have an explanation better than the ones that you all have given, but I do have a story to tell. I'm always glad to tell one of my stories. And this is a story about a woman who was looking at a magazine, I think probably National Geographic, and she saw a photograph of a picture of green Tara, a tanka of green Tara. And when she saw that photo, she just broke down and cried. And so what she did was she cut out the picture from the magazine, and for years she carried it around with her. before she found that green tar was part of Tibetan Buddhism, and that's what led her to become a Tibetan Buddhist, because this picture that she'd seen in the magazine once of green Tara. And I think if there's a hook between us and the Buddha, I think it has to be based on karma, because it's our karmic connection. The Buddhas are constantly benefiting beings, and that benefit that they give to beings is creating karma that connects us with them. So we are connected with the Buddhas through the Buddha's good karma and through our karma. So that's how I think we're connected. So does anybody have anything else to say, or?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
So I think I like the idea of a lasso, because I think the historical Buddha, in his teachings to the bhikkhus and the interpretations and further elaborations of those teachings, were designed to sort of steer his followers in certain directions, sort of prodding them in one way and then in another way, and taking them to greener pastures and taking them to water, and while sort of leading them by the nose sometimes, to have the experiences that he believed he had, or experiences that would replicate some of the internal experience that he had as he was developing and becoming illuminated. And I think, for instance, my favorite sutra, just the Satipatthana Sutra, was a great example of the Pali Canon as a user's manual for a sentient experience, and especially in the Satipatthana Sutra, which is the Mindfulness Sutra. The instructions are pretty clear as to exactly how to orient one's self mentally to the different domains of our experience, the different types of relationships that we have with form and with phenomena and with the different stacks, or the different bundles of energy that we have to deal with, in our body, and then in our senses, and our emotions, and our experience of time and space, and then of course leading all the way up to mindfulness of the Dhammas. So I think the Pali Canon is really meant to guide us on the path. How do we use our consciousness? How do we use our attention to make sense of our experiences? So I mean, I think we were literally lassoed. I mean, I think that's like a cowboy term, I used to practice with a lasso, and they're meant to really to sort of capture stray calves and stuff, and to bring them back into the herd. And it's an apropos metaphor that I don't think really Lama Sheng knew much about cowboys in Montana, but the metaphor kind of rings true to me. But that's the teaching that most stands out in my mind as part of the teachings that are meant to point us where we need to point, and give us the tools to understand our human experience in ways that give us control and options.
Okay, let's move on, I guess.
Well, I would like to say something before we
One
do.
more thing, okay.
I'm sorry, here we are in the first two sentences. We're going to spend half the meeting talking about
We
this.
can spend the whole hour and a half on the first verse if you want.
So this is great, but the reference of the noose is used several different times in deity yoga,
Oh,
and
yes.
not the least of which with Vajrapani, who in his one hand he's holding the Vajra, and in the other hand he's holding a noose, to bind himself, to beings, showing the force of his dharmic power, being a dharma protector. Actually, he was a great bodhisattva. There's also another reference that we learned when we studied the Bardo Todal.
Okay.
And in the Bardo Todal, there are the 8 projectoresses.
Protectoresses?
Projectoresses.
Oh, projectoresses, okay.
Yes. So I'm going to read just what the explanation of the projectoresses is. It says they represent the ejection of beings into higher realms due to the karma of the being and the compassion of the deity.
Okay.
Due to the karma of the being. So we were talking about karma connection, and
Right.
that's certainly implied here, or clearly stated here, and the compassion of the deity. So the deity has the noose, has the lasso, has the rope. So here in the very first example of the 8 projectoresses, it says, I bow down to the projectoress who casts a noose.
Mm-hmm.
So here's this projectoress who is an enlightened deity, manifestation of the natural purity of reality, a natural manifestation of the natural purity of reality. So beyond our everyday consciousness, in other words,
Right.
clothed in flayed hides and unites the 3 levels of existence, the 3 levels of existence. So there'd be, the sphere on the ground, below the ground, and above the ground, as a coarse way of looking at this. With the pure Buddha fields, however these may manifest, she unites the 3 levels of existence with the pure Buddha fields, however many there may manifest, and casts her noose of solar rays, projecting beings of the tricheliocosm into the higher rebirths. So the analogy of the sun is being invoked here too.
Right.
So it's
it's like guiding beings to the pure realms, the pure lands. That's what it sounds like to me.
yeah, and we, when we were talking about the Bardo Todal, we used the example that the male deity, the Harukas and the peaceful deities are like having these tractor beams.
Right.
That are pulling us in. But here, something is a little more aggressive.
With the noose.
The noose.
A lasso.
A lasso from this compassion due to the karmic connection.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I guess we can continue. The empowerments that are the ultimate compassionate activity of all conquerors throughout the 3 times. I will joyfully write one pointedly and without error a representative fragment of the innermost essence of all supreme vehicles, scriptural baskets and tantras, which is the mind of all the Sugatas. Sugata, of course, is Buddha. I assume everybody knows that, but I just thought I'd say that. Transmitted from mind to mind by the Lord of the yogis. Okay, so I don't think there's anything too difficult there, except maybe that Mahamudra is the innermost essence of the supreme vehicles. He's saying this teaching on Mahamudra is the innermost essence of all the supreme vehicles and everything. And so it's the It's the central nerve that runs through all of the Buddhist practice, from the Hinayana all the way up to the Tantra. So that's what he's saying, I think. I, Sondhu Drakpa, do not have the power to benefit others, but I have been urged on by my pupils who are wise and devoted followers of the Dharma. I mustn't ignore the faintest possibility of benefit. So I will write about the mother who gave birth to all the conquerors and their children, who is realized by all the trained worthy ones. So it says the mother who gives birth to all conquerors and their children. I assume that she means Mahamudra there, but anybody have any other thoughts who that mother might be?
Well, wouldn't it be
Emptiness.
just the Torah principle?
What's the Torah principle to you?
Well, the female aspect of the Buddha, the feminine aspect, the wisdom aspect.
So the wisdom of the Buddha
that gives birth, that all this phenomenal nature is like the birth from Tara.
Okay, so anybody else have any thoughts
I
about
think it's
this?
the emptiness.
Emptiness gives
Yeah,
birth to
the
all the
Dharmakaya.
conquerors. Okay. My thought was that it was wisdom or prajna, but
Yeah, it's usually prajna.
yeah. So we could have a vote or a struggle session.
Well, isn't it all the same?
It's close, but emptiness and wisdom. Wisdom is what apprehends emptiness. Emptiness is what is apprehended by wisdom. So there's that kind of difference between the two, I think. So
But
Actually, reading the rest of what's below, who is
Okay.
realized, who is, it's very clear. It's the Sambhogakaya, not the emptiness, but the luminosity, the wisdom, the prajna.
okay, maybe. Okay, anybody else want to?
so
Okay,
within the
I vote.
Sambhogakaya, wouldn't that be the Torah?
Could be any of the, in my opinion, could be any of the bodhisattvas. Okay, it says, who is realized by all the trained worthy ones, who is the mind treasure of the, see, it's interesting here, he personifies it. He says who instead of which, it's not neuter, it's personified, it's not an object, it's personified as a person here. Who is realized by all the trained worthy ones, who is the mind treasure of the venerable lineage holders, who is the essence of all vehicles, scripture, logic, and instructions, who is the essence of the ultimate definitive meanings, the Dharmakaya, and who is the naturally pure expanse of luminosity. So maybe I'll change my opinion and come closer to Lance's opinion here. It's the personification of wisdom as a bodhisattva, I think. So maybe not just Torah, but as a bodhisattva, as a Sambhogakaya rather. So
Couldn't that be prajna paramita, Bernie?
could be prajna paramita, could be prajna paramita.
I mean, it sounds like a suggestion of an essence of sorts that's definitely primordial. Yeah, sort of like
Yeah, but the
like-
interesting part to me is that it's personified as a who and not a which.
Yeah.
Now, generally you would think which is realized by all the trained worthy ones, et cetera, et cetera.
Good
But
point, Bernie. The
yeah,
who is,
the who.
tips it.
So, yeah, so it's more like the Sambhogakaya or maybe even the Dharmakaya. So.
Well, I got a
Persona-
question.
Yeah, okay. For everybody, I hope.
Yeah, no, for everybody. And that is, can this be a spontaneous realization? And which is elaborated by the doctrine, but nevertheless the spontaneous experience of this supersedes the doctrine. But he is a monastic, and he is supporting the monastic point of view.
So,
In other words, can this level of enlightenment, can this level of realization happen outside of the doctrine? But then the doctrine can certainly explain it.
well, I think maybe it is explained better when we get to section on the view. But I think obviously what they say in the section on the view, which is coming up, that it exists before, whether the Buddhas exist or don't exist, this Mahamudra is there, you know? So
Okay.
that sort of suggests that, yes, it's prior to the Buddha and could be realized. I mean, the whole idea of Pratyeka Buddha is the idea that you can realize enlightenment outside of any pre-existing teaching. I mean, you couldn't have the idea of the Pratyeka Buddha otherwise, I think.
But the
But
Pratyeka
just to
doesn't realize
qualify
the
that,
Mahayana, though.
just to qualify that, and then we'll go to Curtis, but the Pratyeka Buddha has a quality of arrogance about it.
Well, yeah, of course, if you get enlightened all by yourself, you're probably going to be pretty arrogant about it. So,
But that is a defining, aspect of what the Pratyeka Buddha is.
right. But they
So-
do have a genuine realization. They do have a genuine realization.
Well, is it a perfect realization?
Well, no, it's not perfect, but then the realization of the arhats isn't perfect either. So,
Right.
The
Or that's
Pratyeka Buddha
depending
is usually
on the Buddha.
considered to be a hinayana realization in the sense of they gain liberation from samsara, but they don't have the means to liberate all sentient beings because they were just focused on themselves.
yeah, sure. Thank you.
I think I think it's pointing to the reality of luminosity and emptiness in union. And on the top of 84, it links the two. It says, this pure elaboration-free luminosity of the true nature. There you got the luminosity and the true nature, which is emptiness. So, I don't think we should try to limit it to one of those two. He's talking about the both, the union. It waxes from one description to another, but it's talking about both, from bottom of 83 to top of 84.
Yeah, well, next, of course, comes the view, which is quite extensive. Okay.
To answer Lance's question about having been spontaneously enlightened, I guess it's from a monastic point, there's a certain structure that you have to go by. So to keep within that structure of how they are taught and how they are supposed to teach, when you have a realization of, a certain magnitude, like, I don't want to call it perfect. Perfect is too, maybe supreme is a better word. Maybe a supreme enlightenment, because perfect is, I don't know, it just describes something that's, I don't know, but most of these, a lot of these traditions, if you're not a monastic, there are a lot of things that aren't shared with the ordinary common people. And they don't allow you to even be involved or even included in a lot of these things. So they try to, I don't know if it's the right word to recruit, but try to, say the next level from being a practitioner or even a yogi is becoming a monastic, is renouncing everything. And it seems as though when they come to that realization that maybe it's not it, maybe an ordinary person can gain this enlightenment that's just as as brilliant and supreme as any monastic can. But if they break away from that, then what is that going to do to their brothers and their teachers, and so I guess they have to keep to a certain level of understanding, or a certain keep to themselves a lot of things that they experienced and realized. They don't want to break the mold.
Okay, well, to that.
Bernie,
Yeah,
I wanted to address something too about what Lance and Tom are talking about. Is the Mahamudra is considered to be like right in front of your nose,
right.
It's like they say it's so close you can't see it. Like if you put your eyeball on a table and you say, "Where's the table?" You can't even see the table,
Or
And
a fish swimming in the ocean can't see the ocean.
yeah. So, but they talk about, can you just kind of just happen to become enlightened, And Mahamudra is like, it's not obstructed by anything but our own obstructions that we create. And I think the idea of the teaching and the guidance of the Buddhas is that we're undoing those obstructions that we ourselves create so that we can be open to the realization of selflessness and Mahamudra.
Yeah.
Recognition.
Well, what I would have to say to all that is that in the Pali scriptures, the metaphor of the raft, where the person builds a raft to travel across the stream, but then when he gets to the other side of the stream, he doesn't need the raft anymore. So the teachings and all the external forms of Buddhism are there to get us across the stream. But so we don't need the raft after we get across the stream, but we do need it to cross the stream. Now, just because we have one raft doesn't mean everybody else's raft has to look exactly the same as ours. There are going to be different kinds of boats, different kind of rafts, but you're going to need something to get across the stream. You're not just going to be able to walk across it. I don't think so. I don't think anybody ever made it all the way to enlightenment completely without the assistance of anybody else. I think you always need the support and help of other people, and that's why devotion is always emphasized so much. But once you get across the stream, of course, the help is not needed anymore.
Okay.
Okay.
Adrian,
question.
we're at the bottom of page 83, Adrian.
Yeah, we're about to start the section on the view, which
Yeah.
is section number 1 in this chapter.
Yeah. Go ahead. I interrupted somebody. So please continue.
Okay, thank
No.
you. Does anybody have the Kindle version?
I've got the Kobo version, but probably different.
Chapter
Kindle does-
3, just before the section called The View.
All right, I got it. Thanks.
So I have a question.
Okay.
So, in speaking about the raft, I get this sense that you're talking about a special kind of support infrastructure that includes each other and teachers and spiritual entities and bodhisattvas, and it makes sense that there's going to be some time when we reach the other side, and knowing that we might be going in two directions at certain times back and forth, but then knowing that we no longer need it. I can't help but think that in order to become enlightened in a very real sense, we need the support of everything and everybody in the universe. I mean, it's all interdependent and it's all propping us up. And the smallest part of our causes and conditions is the entire universe. So are we talking about a time when we find ourselves released from interdependence?
Well, I don't know.
I
It's
think
just a
so.
metaphor, maybe, well, of course, a Buddha is bound to all beings through compassion, even though he isn't bound to all beings through dependence. So there is still that bond between Buddha and all beings. So, but I don't know. I don't know how far you want to push the metaphor. The metaphor works for you, whatever way it works for you.
I think there is a it's like, does the sun need the earth to be able to justify the sun's radiation?
Mhm.
The sun illuminates the earth through its radiance. But if there's no earth, does that mean that the sun still cannot radiate?
Well, in terms of physics, obviously, no. So,
Well, it's a metaphor.
yeah, of
The
course.
thing about light,
Yeah.
if it doesn't hit something, it's like it's invisible.
You know,
Right.
the analogy I like to use with this is if when we all become Buddha, we all get a flashlight. And we take our flashlight and we shine it on a spot. And everybody is shining on the same spot, and that spot gets brighter and brighter and brighter. You know, but if anybody turns their light off, it still is a spot on the wall that is bright from everybody doing it. But they're not independent, or they're not interdependent of each other. Those Buddhas are not interdependent of each other at that point.
Okay,
They become the light.
okay.
They become the light. It's an interesting question.
Yeah. Well, of course, what was it? Garchen Rinpoche says, I give thanks to all the Buddhas as my teachers, but I also give thanks to all sentient beings because they are also my teachers, because they taught me, for example, patience. That's not exactly what he said, but something like that. Maybe somebody else remembers the quote better. So,
Well, this is
So, yeah.
meditation stuff. You know, this is getting out there and meditating without a net, you know, and contemplating these things. Let these things come up. You know, this is shamatha that gives way to vipassana, and it's through these insights that we begin to recognize our true nature. And then when we get get a little wobbly, then we can go to the generation stage and the completion stage of the deity yoga to help us stabilize.
Okay. So anybody else want to say something? So let's move on to the section of the view.
Tom wanted to say something.
Bernie,
Tom,
quick-
Go ahead,
quick
go ahead,
thing.
Tom.
Is I was always taught that whoever gives you the hardest time, whoever's busting your balls all the time, is your greatest teacher.
Mhm.
They were teaching you things that can never be taught in any book. They can never be taught in any classroom. They're teaching you patience. They're teaching you loving kindness and compassion and bodhicitta.
Okay, that's a very good point.
And man, I have had some people bust my balls.
I'm sure. As a business owner, I'm sure.
And not just, I mean, but in the Buddhist form as well, you know, just give me a hard time, but I'm grateful. At the moment, I wasn't, but now I really am grateful.
Okay, so as I was saying, the section on the view, what occurs of the three times appear or don't appear, whether the Aryas realize it or don't realize it, whether the Buddhists teach it or don't teach it, whether the commentators explain it or don't
Wait a
explain
minute, I'm
it.
sorry, what page are you on?
I don't have page numbers here. I've got the
84.
electronic.
The view, are you
The
on,
view,
it says number one, the view,
Yes.
number one, the view.
whether the conquerors of the three times?
Yes,
Yeah.
appear or don't appear, right.
Is that what you were just reading?
Yes, yes.
Then I missed my place, I'm sorry.
Okay, so I can start all over again and read the paragraph. Whether the conquerors of the three times appear or don't appear, whether the Aryas realize it or don't realize it, whether the Buddhists teach it or don't teach it, whether the commentators explain it or don't explain it, this pure, elaboration-free luminosity of the true nature is primordially, naturally present with neither increase nor decrease.
Whether you're on the right page or not.
Whether you're on the right page or not. Mahamudra's there, whether you're reading whatever page you're reading, okay? Okay, so, I mean, the first part of this verse just says to me, we're talking about an objective reality and not just a subjective experience. Does anybody else have a different or a greater or more extensive explanation of the first part? Everything up to the 4 lines with weather just says to me that this is objective reality and not subjective experience.
Just a technical point, Bernie. A term I've read is intersubjective. And the
Yeah.
idea is if you called it an objective reality, it would be as if it existed by itself away from other stuff. But that really it is interdependent, but it's not like stuck in interdependence. It's completely clear and free.
Okay, so you're going to argue that Mahamudra does not
Technical
exist
point.
independently of the people who experience it or not?
No,
your
it's
point?
interdependent.
Okay. So if there was nobody in the universe, would there be Mahamudra?
Yes,
You
I don't think so, because
You don't
it's the
think so?
nature of mind. And if you have the nature of mind, you've got beings that are in the universe.
I really don't know. I don't have an opinion, but
Yeah.
Doing a good
I'm
job
going
of
by
trying to
Bob
get us
Thurman.
back to eternalism, Bernie.
well, that's an interesting question because this whole section moves you very close to it talks about the changeless nature of the Dharmakaya. I mean, of the Mahamudra. It's very much, if you approach it a certain way, it does have a very eternalistic feel to it. It's hard to get away from that. What do you think of that? How would you reconcile all this with the teaching on impermanence?
They use the word permanence to describe that level of reality.
Why do you think so?
well, because that's how we have to apprehend it as human beings. But how do we experience it as human beings in the transcendental state? Can we achieve the non-dual, unelaborated, non-objectifiable?
So we have two levels of description here. We talk about that everything is impermanent, but then we're talking about the Mahamudra, and we use phrases like here, a little further down, the unchanging Dharmakaya.
That's right.
How do you reconcile those 2 points of view?
Because it doesn't arise, so it doesn't cease, Bernie, I think is the point.
And
Yeah.
why doesn't it arise?
Because
It doesn't need to arise. It's completely
Yes.
free.
it's the essence of birthlessness.
What does birthlessness mean to you?
Well, we went through this before. We spent quite a bit of time.
Okay.
There's no coming or going, in or
Right.
out.
There's no
Okay.
birth, there's no death.
And why is that?
It's beyond our comprehension. This is, are we gonna keep going around this wheel, or do we just experience it and just let it be do we just become the embodiment of it? Do we become the light? Do we become Mahamudra?
So it's beyond all concept, including permanence and impermanence.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's how we should understand it, is that it's changeless, but changeless only in the sense of being beyond change and unchanging. Okay, so the last two lines, we get a little, this pure elaboration-free luminosity of the true nature is primordially naturally present with neither increase nor decrease. Okay, the first part, we get a lot of words here. Does anybody want to give some sort of explanation of what pure elaboration-free luminosity of the true nature
Sambhogakaya.
might be? It's the Dharmakaya, but that's just.
No, that's the
giving it another-
Sambhogakaya. The true nature is the Dharmakaya.
Okay. The pure elaboration-free luminosity of the true nature then is the Sambhogakaya?
Sambhogakaya of the true nature, which is the Dharmakaya. It's luminosity and emptiness.
Okay. So what does that mean to you?
It's description of reality. I mean, they keep
Okay,
coming back to this. It's the Yab Yom. It's emptiness and compassion.
So
Method
why
and
is-
wisdom.
right. Why is this description of reality better than some other description of reality?
Well, everything that Curtis just said speaks of dualistic nature.
What, or getting beyond dualistic nature, you mean? I'm
No,
not saying he falls
No.
into dualism.
These two sentences that you said, this pure elaboration-free luminosity of the true nature, which is non-conceptual,
Right.
okay?
Inseparable.
Inseparable.
from what?
Inseparable from itself, from anything, and again, that's another concept. And inseparability or separability is another dualistic concept. So,
Okay.
we're trying to get to this true nature. What is this true nature? It is non-dual, elaboration free, and non-objectifiable. In other words, there's no object. You can't point at it. You can't look at it. You can't feel it. You can't see it.
Okay,
You know,
but you can experience it.
but you can experience it
What's the difference between seeing and experiencing?
a lot.
Okay, explain that.
Well, I guess when we see something, are you thinking about that we see it with our eyes, or do we see it with our heart? And is that not another metaphor for knowing with the heart, the gnosis of the heart?
So
Is that the
what's
seeing that you're referring to?
well, so I'm asking you what you mean the difference between seeing and experiencing.
Well, that's my
So it's
seeing with
whether
the
it's
heart,
the-
seeing with
With
the
the
heart,
heart
is
or with the mind, you mean? With the heart or with the mind, or
with the heart mind,
with the heart mind?
with the heart mind.
Okay. Anybody else want to talk about? I mean, this is real difficult stuff. I can't pretend that I understand it any better.
It's very
than you.
abstract, isn't it?
It's well, it's
You're
a
doing
lot
a
of
good job of
words.
pretending, Bernie.
No, I'm not pretending. I absolutely am not pretending. So, I mean, it's a lot of words and we've heard them all before, but I just want to try to get a better sense of what pure elaboration-free luminosity means.
Well, I'd like to mention something about that, Bernie.
Sure.
This is something I was talking about before, that in a lot of the Mahamudra teachings and so forth, and it's in Dzogchen, they say stuff like this too,
Yeah.
but that, like, we have awareness or mind, right? But they say that in Mahamudra, there's, or I guess they really say more in Dzogchen, there's no mind. So you
Uh-huh.
think, oh, there's no mind, it's a big blank. But actually what they're saying is that it's luminosity, and it's actually beyond what we would think of as mind, because what we think of as mind is subject and object.
Okay.
Luminosity, subject and object are not separate or different.
So we're transcending dualism here.
Yes, that's what I was
It's a-
getting at.
Pure being.
Pure
Yeah.
being without what would make being impure? What's the difference between pure being and impure being?
Substance.
Substance, okay. Impure being like kleshas or something else,
Glaciers
Or-
are just a manifestation of karma.
or impure being as opposed to being thoughts or what?
Yeah, any
Thoughtless
elaboration?
reality or what?
Thoughts are
Any of the-
phenomena. Thoughts are just phenomena.
Yeah.
And
Ignorance, Bernie.
we use the word thoughts when we say heart thoughts, which is just a play on words to try and give a relative understanding of something we're trying to conceptualize. But it's really not, it's not real.
Okay,
Maybe you'd be
Maybe-
happier
Wait,
with
wait,
Brahman,
it's
Bernie.
it's the mind of the Buddha. Remember, it's the mind.
Sure.
The heart mind is the mind of the Buddha.
sure. The big
So-
mind,
So how can we qualify that as human beings?
sure. You mean it's beyond our comprehension is what you mean, right?
And beyond our expression.
Can't be spoken of, can't be understood except by realizing it.
Right. And
Okay,
also, ignorance is the basic impurity.
yeah, of course. yeah.
Avidya.
Well, I
It's
shouldn't
not
say of
knowing,
course,
like-
thank
like-
you. Yeah.
I look at it this way, when we go through life, we know like a teeny little bit about things, and almost there's a whole ocean of stuff that we don't know about in the world.
Right.
It's like, what are my neighbors saying across the street? I don't know, but they're saying something. They're watching TV, saying something, I don't know what they're saying. It's just a state of ignorance. And the Buddhas don't have any ignorance.
Okay. So,
Well,
okay, the
focus
last,
on those
Okay.
things,
Tom.
okay,
focusing on like you said, Pete, I mean, if we focus on every single thing that we try to have knowledge of, how is that going to help us enlighten? If we think of irrelevant things like what's in that piece of ground over there that's moving around, or that's there or not there. I mean,
No, what I was saying was, I wasn't saying that we should like do an analysis and
Mhm.
learn everything that's being done around us.
Mhm.
But this is the Buddha's natural awareness.
Sure.
There's no ignorance. They're completely aware of all that stuff without even trying.
Certainly. And, like we're trying to use labels and words to things that I can't possibly even comprehend, but it's something that this pure nature, like you said, is something that always has been and always will be. But we have to recognize it. That's what I'm told, that we have to recognize it. And that's why we go through the things we go through on a daily basis, that we're practicing and practicing and practicing. And maybe one lifetime or another 10 lifetimes or another 1,000 lifetimes, maybe we will truly recognize it. And that's why we go through these progressions over and over and over and over without laziness and indifference, because it's easy to get caught up in just in your daily life and your daily worldly activities, and your worldly thoughts. Well, at least that's me. I still got a long, long ways to go.
so the last line says primordially naturally present. So the true nature is primordially naturally present with neither increase nor decrease. How is the ultimate wisdom naturally present right here, right now, right before us?
Well, first of all, it says this elaboration-free luminosity of the true nature is primordially naturally present.
Right.
So it's not really referring to the true nature, it's referring to the luminosity.
Okay, so luminosity is primordially naturally present. In what sense? Where is it? If it's right there, why can't you point at it?
It's the light.
What light? Which light?
It's the light that's there when there is nothing else.
We cannot point to it because of our ignorance,
Okay,
because of our purity.
but it's there Where, okay, it's naturally present. Where is it naturally
It's the
present?
light of mind. Mind is not substantive. It's not an object. It's luminous by nature. And that's what's primordial and naturally present.
Okay, so it's mind. Okay, so do you see your own mind?
With your heart,
No
yes.
answer. Yes.
Would you
I
feel
think
better
we
if I
would-
could put it in a test tube for you, Bernie?
No,
No, I didn't say you could put, I'm asking the question, do you see your own mind or don't you see your own mind? If it's present as your own mind, then why don't you see it?
Isn't that what we're trying to do?
with your physical. With your
What is
physical
it that
eyes,
hides
with
our true nature from ourselves?
Can you
If
see
it's
your
our
eye
own
with your
mind
eye,
and it's
Bernie?
primordially present, why is it hidden from us?
Bernie, can you see your eye when you look out in space?
No.
Well, that's it.
Well, then you're saying you don't see your own mind.
The teachings are that the Buddhas don't even find the mind.
Why is that?
It's not an object.
Okay.
You're talking about it like, do you see this object? Your subject seeing this object. That's not going to happen. It's never going to happen.
So you
Sorry,
don't
Bernie,
see it
it's not
because it can't be
substance.
seen.
The mind is not substance.
Substance in what sense?
As in
Like matter?
an entity.
It's not an entity. Why not?
It's luminosity. It's not an object. It's not a thing.
It's not a thing.
Its nature is emptiness.
Okay. So the
Emptiness
nature
and
of-
luminosity
okay.
intertwined. Can't separate them. You can't make luminosity into a substance because it's empty. You can't say emptiness is anything other than the luminosity.
So,
Completely unified.
so what might be a substance as opposed to the substanceless? Okay. if-
Brahman, Brahman,
okay,
the
you mean
Hindu
the i-
Brahman.
That's a substance. Or maybe I'm getting too, maybe we're getting too far afield here. So maybe this is too much. Okay, I don't know. I apologize.
You know why I like
Well,
talking about
it's
it, Bernie?
okay.
Okay.
Go ahead. Somebody was, Pete, go ahead.
Yeah. I like talking about these things because it's not that we talk about it, know exactly what it is, but we talk about it. It makes us really wonder about it, makes us think about it, and makes us consider things.
Okay.
And then sooner or later we'll figure them out, you know?
So it's naturally present, but we can't see it because it's not an object. Okay.
Well,
What does it mean? What does it mean? Okay, go ahead, Lance.
I was just going to say, if we look at it in terms of the kayas, the three
Right.
kayas, there's the Dharmakaya, which is the true nature, primordial, non-conceptual, that is absolute. But then it radiates. And the luminosity then manifests
Mhm.
through the Sambhogaya, which is relative, which is phenomenal, through the Nirmanakaya, which is now it's flesh and blood.
Right.
Now it is something that you can touch and feel. The Sambhogaya is still intellectual stuff, but the Nirmanakaya is now stuff that you can touch and feel. So this is how we approach it. This is how we apprehend it, is through the emanation body of the Dharmakaya, who teaches us to recognize the Sambhogaya, which is the intelligence, but it's the highest yoga tantra. It's the highest level that we can think of as human beings, then to be able to experience that which cannot be expressed, the Dharmakaya, the mind of the Buddha. And the mind has to be in quotes, because we're thinking of the mind as this, but it's something that is beyond that. It's beyond expression, but we use the mind just as a pointer to it, but it's something beyond that.
Okay. So it sounds like you're going from Dharmakaya to Sambhogakaya to Nirmanakaya. Do we reverse that process and go from the Nirmanakaya back to the Sambhogakaya, back to the Dharmakaya?
Well, that's how human beings are approaching it. Yes, that's
That's-
what we're trying to do.
In Garchen Rinpoche's visualization of the Dharmakaya as space and Sambhogakaya manifesting as clouds and then the Nirmanakaya coming out of it as rain, and then the recycling happens. The Nirmanakaya falls on the ground of sentient beings. The tree of the four traditions grow and bloom at the same time. Ice covering the ground melts and all sentient beings are liberated, and then they manifest as clouds and dissolve back into the Dharmakaya and
Oh,
space.
it's a
Very
very
nice.
nice, that's a very nice visualization. I've never heard it before. So
I'll
Okay.
copy it and put it in chat.
if you've got it, yeah, I would appreciate it. Okay, I guess I've beaten this to death. So next we have two metaphors. We have two verses with two metaphors. The first is space. Worlds are formed within pure space and are destroyed by burning fire, scattering winds, and so on. Although this destruction occurs through many incalculable eons, space remains unharmed, never altered, increases nor decreases. So everybody knows what he's talking about here is talking about the cycle of creation and destruction of worlds throughout time, which is the traditional Buddhist cosmology. I'll point it out. I'm sure everybody already knows it, but just thought it needed to be said. So what makes this a good analogy for the Mahamudra? Where's the point of connection here?
The Mahamudra is the realization or the recognition of that dynamism.
Okay,
Well, and it's not even a dynamism because the space is, I don't want to say, to say it's self-existent is a false way of expressing it. But all the manifestation of all this creation stuff is just the space slowing down until it becomes visible or hearable or something like that.
anybody else want to say what they think this analogy means or metaphor? I don't know that, I'm not sure I remember the difference. So
I think the nature of mind is considered to be like space in that you could put a table in the space and remove the table. The space hasn't changed at all. It's just space.
and how does the mind not change at all?
The true nature of the mind is unchanging.
Okay.
Because it's like space.
Because it's like space. It's like space and being unchanging any other way? Or is it just, that's the only way it's like
And
space?
empty, as Curtis pointed out. It's empty.
Empty and unchanging, okay.
All pervasive.
All pervasive, empty and unchanging.
I think this is an analogy.
Yeah, of course. It's an
We've
analogy.
got the physical world and space,
Right,
it's clearly a physics analogy.
sure.
And what's analogous to space is the emptiness of the Dharmakaya and the mind, all the manifestations of the mind, as well as the material world, are all impermanent. They're all fluid, moving. They don't stay fixed because nothing is fixed in the universe any more than the planets are. Nothing's fixed. It's just
Okay.
space. Space and emptiness are, good equalities here in the analogy.
So, okay. So
So
the
Curtis-
points of connection are that space is empty and it's not changing. It's sort of like the stage on which everything, the play takes place or something like that.
I see space as the medium that every quote unquote thing floats in.
Sure.
It's like blood. and everything that's in the blood craps in the blood and has sex in the blood and
In the
and
blood?
all the
You
all
mean
the
in the
lore
ocean, not
happens.
my, I hope there aren't things swimming around in my blood and
Well,
crapping.
no, that's a blood analogy, but yeah, ocean, space, yeah, a pure medium that is, once you filter it, it's still the same stuff. It's not stuff. It's the medium, but it exists. So I mean, I definitely can see that anything that floats in this medium is a contaminant.
Mhm.
So, by that perspective, everything that is not pure space is a contaminant.
So that pure space is our nature, is our innate nature, is our
Right.
Buddha seed. And it's never decreased or increased. We cover it up with our obscurations and our karma and our afflictive emotions and our tendencies that we've acquired through thousands of rebirths. And we're trying to purify that every time we come back, or are fortunate enough to come back with a human form. So
To purify our perception of that creation. Is that what you said? Is that what you meant?
I mean, but yeah, I mean, because that's what we're here to purify all those obscurations.
Right. But the space is
The space is
already
always
pure,
there.
is already
It's always,
pure.
yeah, it's always there. It's never changing. Like it's space.
But it's obscured. Well, that's the next verse, actually. So let's move on to the next verse.
One
There's-
thing I want
there's-
to point out, Bernie.
One
is
more
that
point?
Yeah, one more point. Space has, you can make the 10 directions and the 3 times in space.
Right.
So they say the nature of mind is like space in that it's clear and open and free, but it's even more pure than space because space has directions. You can go 3 feet, take a left in space, go 3 more feet and take a right.
Okay.
In the nature of mind, there's no like measurements or center or edge, as they say.
Okay, that's an interesting question, actually. If there was nothing in the universe, would the universe have a size?
Well, isn't that just limited to our 3-dimensional perception? But
Yeah.
if we can accept that there's multiple dimensions, then that argument falls apart.
I don't know. It gets beyond my pay grade, really. So, yeah. I mean, that's an old argument from philosophy. If there was nothing in the universe, what is space dependent on the things within it, or is space independent of the things within it? That's an old argument. So, and I don't think it's ever been settled. So Einstein argued that it was dependent on the objects within it, but other people said no. Okay. So there is darkness when the sun's primordial brightness is completely obscured by clouds, and there's brightness when the clouds vanish. Despite this apparent increase or decrease, it is impossible for the sun's essence to increase or decrease. So this sort of answers the question that I sort of raised before. If the Mahamudra, the nature of reality, is always there, why don't we perceive it? Sometimes it's obscured, more obscured, and sometimes it's less obscured. So it's like clouds in the sun. So this is the second metaphor. Even though it is primordially present, it seems to increase and increase because of what we call clouds, which is really just, I think, our own ignorance here. So anybody else want to say something more about this analogy or not?
Well, the clouds can be any of the emotions. Any of
Okay.
the 5 poisons and the myriad combinations therein, it can be those clouds.
So when our emotions fall away, that means the nature is like the sun shining in the sky.
Yes, and I think that's being on the boomies, that's being on the boomy path
So
at that point.
what obscures our true nature then is the kleshas, our negative defilements. And if we get rid of our defilements, then we'll see the true nature.
Correct.
Your opinion.
Well, I think that's the way it's explained in the Jewel Ornament of Liberation, etc.
Okay. So the main thing we need to do is purify our negative emotions.
Well, that's the first step, or not the first
what-
step, but it's a step along the way. I mean, that's certainly a progressed state to get to. But yes, it's a necessary thing. And then we go on to the path of seeing and so on. Then you go into the boomies. I think by what the seventh boomy, then you will have overcome the kleshas, overcome the obscurations of emotions. Isn't that correct?
I forget. There's two, they talk about two obscurations, the obscuration of the kleshas and the obscurations of the know-ables. Not the nobles, but the know-ables.
Well, that's the seventh, eighth, and ninth, eighth, ninth,
Yeah,
and tenth.
on the path of seeing, I think you overcome the kleshas. And I might be wrong about that.
I think you're right.
If I am, somebody correct me. And I think by the seventh or eighth boomy, you overcome the obstacle of the know-ables. So at least that's how I remember it. If somebody else remembers it differently, please correct me, because I am often wrong.
But I think the point is there's a science to this part of the discussion.
Okay.
And this is part of the Dharma. This is what the Dharma is the science of the mind and
Okay.
understanding, these different, appearances and how they manifest and how we're able to overcome those, the attachments and the aversions to them.
Okay. So yeah, so what obscures the mind is like the clouds, and the clouds are like, these are the obscurations of our conflicting emotions and of the knowables, which, as I understand, is our ignorance of the true nature of reality. Anybody else want to say something more? Or I don't know whether it's that difficult. So, but if anybody has something to add, please do it.
The sun analogy is wonderful because the sun shines down on everything and everyone. It doesn't pass judgment on good or bad, right or wrong. You're virtuous, non-virtuous. I mean, that right there, I mean, when you with my limited amount of studying of Buddhism, that is so vast. Because if you look at most other religions or other philosophy, there's always that judgment of good and bad, right and wrong, virtuous, non-virtuous. But when you look at the Buddhist love, I mean, that's so deep, but regardless of what you've done, what you haven't done, and just constantly there. It's constantly there, regardless. That ray, that beautiful warm ray, and always trying to guide us. And I mean, simple as it be, as I sound, I mean, that to me, I really that helps my devotion. It really does. Mm-hmm.
So the sun's primordial brightness is not only the wisdom of the Buddha, but also his perfect love and compassion. So I'm not going to argue against that. So, okay, let's go on to the next verse. I don't know how much more we're going to get tonight, but the unchanging Dharmakaya, which is present in the same way, is nothing other than your own mind. The entire variety of samsara and nirvana arise in the mind. The suffering of the world and its beings arise from the confusion caused by the erroneous delusion of not understanding your own mind. So the first part has been talking about the nature and how it's primordially present and neither decreases nor increases. Now we get into the second part of the view, which is saying that nature is nothing more than your own mind. Now, I know we've all heard this many times and we've talked about it many times, but anybody say why the nature of reality is nothing else than your own mind? Or should I play devil's advocate and argue something against that? Okay. Why is the nature of reality your own mind? How do you know? What makes you so sure that that's the truth?
There's not a
Our,
thing in
our
the
mind
universe
is
that-
confused. It's filled with negative emotions. What makes you think that? I mean, it's like maybe it's like muddy water. You can't take the mud out of the water. It's just if you tried to pull it out of the water, you wouldn't have any water left at all.
But then at some point, the water becomes invisible and your mind becomes invisible.
Invisible?
Yes, that it is transparent. It mind, see, this is a problem, I think, where, I think this being further clarified by saying that this mind is just another concept.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And we
Sure.
have to let go of the idea of mind, the concept of mind. And when
But
we,
it says here the Dharmakaya is nothing other than your own mind.
well, I know, and that's part of the problem. Here, the language, I think, might be getting in the way of the experience.
Okay.
And possibly this is my problem of not being able to reconcile this.
Sure, sure.
But it seems like, but sometimes they say, well, mind is just a concept. But then here it's saying that Dharmakaya is no other than your mind.
Okay. Why say the Dharmakaya is nothing other than your mind rather than the Dharmakaya is nothing other than your left foot?
In Mahamudra, sometimes it's referred to as ordinary mind.
Okay. Why?
The idea is that when you meditate and you could be a busuku and have nothing, live in a hut, eat a bowl of rice every day and meditate and realize the nature of your mind, and you'll realize it's just ordinary.
Why?
It was ordinary all along.
Ordinary in what sense?
And
Sounds
it's not like something else. It's our awareness is basically
okay.
it. We just don't realize it.
Yeah, it's our default. It's our default state.
Okay.
We don't get to sit with it because we've got so much busyness.
And why do you think that default state is the Dharmakaya? Why isn't it just like chemicals circulating in your brain?
Because it's all we know.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
I mean, I think if we want to, do a vipassana on ourselves, then that's, when we can take ourselves apart, and it might not be, I can't swear that you share the mind, but I know that from the stories we tell each other that it's what's always there. And if it's what's always there, then it has to be part of that which pervades us all in a timeless and spaceless manner. And so I guess for me maybe it's a matter of faith, but the reason I can't deny it is because it's not going anywhere. It's when it comes down to it, it's the baseline of my experience. It's isness.
You mean the pure experience, your basic experience all the time, 24 hours a day is just your own mind.
Yeah, I mean, and going back to Pete's suggestion, there's some very subtle suggestions around awareness and what awareness, what it is, what it means. But and in the insight tradition, they talk about loving awareness, which imbues our Dharmakaya mind with the idea that there's that below that there is loving going on, that there is a Buddha that's caring,
Okay, well, one last thing and then we'll call it a night, I think. So it says here that samsara and nirvana arise from the mind. Somebody want to say what that means to them? How does samsara arise from our mind and nirvana arise from our own mind?
They're exemplars. They're expressive tools.
What does that mean? It's a little bit above. Okay, what is an exemplar? Explain that a little bit. For
Well,
me.
it becomes an example of the dualistic nature. So
Mind,
a mind, yes, a mind.
you mean through our thoughts,
Through our thoughts, yeah, and our actions and so on, the results of our actions and so on, and that we it's the stage play, it's the passion play that we are part of.
So, yeah, so, okay. So anybody else want to say why they think samsara and nirvana arise in our own mind?
The mind is the ground of everything, samsara and nirvana.
Okay, that's more or less what he's saying here, but what does that mean to you?
Just what I said.
There's what they call the ground Mahamudra, which is Buddha nature, and there's what the fruition Mahamudra is when you realize Buddha nature.
Sure.
But when you realize the fruition Mahamudra, it's no different from the ground.
They're inseparable. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that, okay, what about samsara? What that means everything in the universe, the Andromeda galaxy, the anteater,
All samsara.
the COVID mind.
All samsara.
So how can all that be just your mind? How can the Andromeda galaxy fit inside your mind?
Because it's the mind that is the mind in this case is the screen on which all this is projected. All these images are projected, and we are defining it through those projections.
So
Through
all
that
these
screen.
so the external world only exists as a projection of your mind.
Of course not. That's what emptiness is.
So emptiness is realizing everything is just a projection of your own mind. then.
Right.
I thought of the example of what if you thought in your mind of a tree, right?
Right.
And then you look outside your window and you see a tree. Is that an idea of a tree? It's kind of you're having an idea of a tree just looking at the tree out the window. And then you walk outside and you're just about to touch the tree. And then it's still a thought. But when you touch the tree, it's still a thought.
Why is
It's like a
that?
thought. I'm touching
But
the
then-
tree.
but then-
There's a tree here.
But then 2 hours later, when you're in a room with no windows, can you experience that tree again?
It's just a thought.
Yes.
What I'm saying is, even when you experience that tree, it's just a thought.
Correct. However you experience it, whether you experience it through thinking it or you're experiencing it through seeing and touching it.
Yes.
So what's the difference between experiencing something and imagining it then?
I think Curtis has the answer.
Okay, give us the answer, Curtis.
Well, y'all are in the psychology, but I want to come back to Andromeda.
Okay, come back to Andromeda.
Yeah. I'm going to tramp all over Buddhist categories, but it has some sort of existence. It's not just a thought in my mind.
Okay.
I think what we're bumping up against here is the difference between materialism and idealism. In
Right.
philosophy, idealism is the opposite, if you will, of materialism. Materialism is matter is real. It's the bottom line.
Right.
Idealism is when you start to say God or mind, and you're into the realm of spirit. And if you're, however you want to articulate it, if you are saying, if somehow mind is prior, is more substantive than matter, all of matter, including Andromeda.
Okay. So that's what you think is the correct view, or do you think they're equally true, or you think one is materialism is more true?
I mean, Buddhism is an idealistic philosophy. It's not a materialistic philosophy.
So you think Buddhism is idealistic and you think idealism is correct then, okay?
It's not eternalistic.
Okay,
It's not nihilistic, but it is definitely not materialistic.
okay.
It's
So,
a
but
point,
it's
it's a
clo-
point of view, isn't it? It's a point of view. It's a,
It's closer
As
to
a philosophy, it's a
idealism
point
than-
of view, and it's idealistic as a philosophical view.
Okay,
It's like the five elements when seen from the enlightened mind. The five elements are the five wisdom consorts of the wisdom Buddhas,
right,
like Mamaki for water and so forth.
sure. The five female Buddhas and the five male Buddhas. Yeah, okay. I think we have to leave it there for tonight because time is up. So,
so we're at, what, the unchanging Dharmakaya, which is present in the same way?
it's not, okay, the last line that we got to is this fourth verse, which is the unchanging Dharmakaya, and it ends with caused by the erroneous delusion of not understanding your own mind.
Okay, got it.
All of the 200 billion plus galaxies
Yeah,
are all Nirmanakaya expressions.
really? Okay, Nirmanakaya. Okay.
Yes, it's all manifestation.
I don't know if
Manifestation.
that's true. I don't know if I can accept that
Okay.
because they don't speak of enlightenment. They don't speak of transcendence. They are manifestations of matter. But are they there?
Manifest-
Are they there as the body, speech, and mind of the Buddha? Is it, it's an interesting question, isn't it?
Well-
They're expressions of mind. Matter doesn't have any real existence. If you want to talk about any sort of existence at all as real, mind is more real than matter.
Okay.
But
Bob
that's
Thurman said
playing with the
something.
categories a lot.
Bob Thurman said that like the Buddha Shakyamuni's Pure Land, which is like this world, is known as endurance
Mhm.
because it's so difficult to go through, but that's how the beings here progress on the path to awakening, through practicing patience and recognizing impermanence and dukkha and so forth.
Okay. So I think we're going to have to wrap it up for now.
Maybe you ought to write a couple of those ideas down. We can pick it up next time.
Yeah, well, whoever is next can,
Well, Adrian
up.
is supposed to be next. So Adrian, I have to ask you the question because we know that you've got many things going on, but can you be here to lead it next time?
2 weeks from now.
Oh, wait a minute. Yes,
Oh,
let's
2
about
weeks.
that.
That's
Is it,
sometime
it's no, that's right. It's next.
in
week.
March.
It's
Yeah, the
next
reason
week
why
because-
we moved this 2 weeks because
Yeah.
Tom and I are going on retreat for a couple of weeks, so we're not going to be available.
So it'll be next week.
So
No, it's the 9th.
So
I think
it's going to
the 9th.
be the 9th because March the 2nd is the eve of Losar.
Okay.
So that's going to be a busy time also.
So we're not going to meet next week, but not till March.
We're
March
not going to
9th.
meet until March the 9th.
Okay. Okay, so a big, long break then. Everybody's
Plenty of
gonna,
time. There's plenty of
everybody's
time
gonna
for it.
just forget all the wise things I said tonight.
No, we're
Oh,
going to
Adrian
meditate
has
on
plenty
it,
of-
Bernie.
Adrian can request the recording and has plenty of time to review it.
Okay.
So,
So, yeah, he can go over this paragraph again if he wants. I mean, it's very dense, so.
So back to the question of Adrian, will you be able to lead it on March the 9th?
Lance, I mean, it's a little bit too far for me to say anything. I should be, but just like, tonight, just like, with work, I only got home at 7 and then I had to run to see a client. And so
Am I after
I'll say yes,
Adrian? I
but-
think I am.
What's that?
If I'm after Adrian, I'll be on deck if he's can't do it.
All right, well, let's leave it that way if it's okay.
And I'll put y'all all through the same paragraphs again.
If you want,
Okay.
if you want, that's fine. I mean, it certainly deserves going over more than once.
Well, Adrian, I think speaking for everybody, I think we respect, your position and what you need to do and everything for work and everything. So don't feel bad or that you're being slighted in any way. We're trying to just help and facilitate, our meetings and so on.
I appreciate it. No, I know this is for me to, I know it's there for me to learn something and I just know exactly what it is. So just trying to balance things out right now. It's a little bit difficult, but yeah, I appreciate it.
Do you want us to provide this recording? Because I don't know how much time you missed, but are you interested in going back? Will you be able to go back and review it, or should we just archive it and leave it for a time when somebody might want it?
No, so Michael has it, right? Mike, you have them, right?
No, I'm recording them.
Oh, you're recording. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because usually what I do, I just hop on, when I'm driving, and that's basically what I'm doing, and just doing the Dharma listening, and
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, don't drive up a tree while you're listening to this.
Don't think the tree is an illusion and my car is an illusion.
The
And it's all the
trees,
Dharmakaya.
I experienced so many thoughts today, so.
All right.
But,
So I guess we'll see everybody in about a month then, huh?
Oh, have a good time
4
in
weeks.
Florida.
4 weeks.
Yeah.
Come back enlightened, please.
Awaken, huh?
Come back enlightened, please.
Okay, brother. That was a great night. Thank you so much, Bernie.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I always enjoy this.
Mhm.
Barney, did you pierce your ears?
Did I what?
You have the earrings? Did you
Oh, I
pierce?
pierced my ears. Yeah, yeah. It's my new,
Good.
now I
I was
got
wondering, I was
pierced
like,
ears to go
have
along
I
with my
not
tattoos.
noticed all this time?
Yeah. I'm just getting silly in my old age.
You got a tattoo, Bernie?
I've got 2 tattoos. I've got a tiger and I've got a dragon.
There you go.
But I have to take off my shirt to show you, so I'm not going to do that. I have to wait till summer comes to see them, so. Yeah.
Bernie, I
got a
love the
tiger. It's the year
Socratic
of the
Buddhist
tiger.
method.
Yeah, well, maybe I can.
Great Socratic